And it's, and he's sorry that he couldn't be. And we brought some books. His website that just gives basic information, because we're looking at launching this in 2009 to talk about accountability for whoever wins, because it's not like our work's going to end then, is democracyinitiative.org. And you can go to there and check it out. You can go to Fair Vote and get more information about the project. So I'm sorry that I'm not Walter Mosley, but I hope that I did pique your interest in that.
And her mother wants me to remind you that after you get done here and you're ready to really get liquored up, there is a party for Media Revolution at Trocadero's nightclub. Go to that. Lincoln will be dancing. Oh my God! You know what blows me away? This is the fourth kind of ancillary thing around media, National Media Reform Conference, and you people just keep getting more beautiful. Fabulous! This is just great. And I want you to know that the person who really has been a central figure in defining how a lot of us, certainly me, think about media, how we understand it as a system and environment that is damaging and destructive toward democracy, and who also understand the essential connection between media reform and democracy movements. Bob McChesney is here with us tonight. I also want to note that we have some fantastic activists from Minnesota and the region here. First and foremost, the Eau Claire County Democrats are here tonight from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I know this is not making political endorsements one way or another, but there wasn't much of a Democratic Party in all crazy for saying it. I've had people tear into me. I've had people say, get over it. Well, I'm sorry. I named my daughter after Walt Whitman because he wrote so beautifully about elections and democracies. I am not getting over the theft of our democracy in the year 2000. Functional republic on the planet, George Bush and Dick Cheney were not elected. They lost the popular vote. And if we take seriously the will of the people of Florida, then we must say that they lost the electoral vote as well. For no review of the ballots cast, no survey of citizens disenfranchised, no study of the circumstances of that election would suggest that more Floridians went to the polls on that day in November 2000 with the intention of electing George Bush and Dick Cheney, yet they took power. And the key word there is took power. Elections have consequences. Whether they are decided fairly or unfairly, whether they are legitimate or illegitimate, power is conveyed. And with that conveyance comes the consequence. Tonight, across this republic, in small towns and cities, mothers will walk down hallways in their homes, and they will look into a room and posters and books and stuffed animals of an adult child who will never sleep in that bed again. Because elections have consequences. And George Bush and Dick Cheney seized the power of this republic and led us into an illegal and immoral war that has killed more than 4,000 of our sons and daughters. Elections have consequences. It matters that the votes are counted. It matters to whom the power is conveyed.
Send them to the Hague.
That comes through. I still like the idea of us taking care of them. When the consequences of an election gone awry is that a mother must bury her son and daughter killed in a war that need not have been fought, then the highest ranking of Americans, we, the people, the citizens who Jefferson said were solely responsible for maintaining the functioning of the Republic, we must ask, how do we assure that this will never happen again? Some of my friends and comrades who will gather this weekend for the National Conference for Media Reform will tell you that we must change the media first. They will say, as James Madison did, a popular government without popular information or the means of acquiring it is but a prologue to a farce or a tragedy, or perhaps both. A farce, the so-called election of George Bush. A tragedy, the war in Iraq. Both, as Madison predicted. My friends in the media reform movement will be right. We must reform. We must fundamentally change our media. But how do we create a democratic media system if our elections do not produce leaders who will reflect the will and the genius of the people, that is that the people's airwaves must serve democracy? How do we do that? How do we bring reform if we don't have functional elections? So surely, Rob Ritchie is right. We need instant runoff voting, and we need it now.
President and CEO of Common Cause, and back in the 80s, he was a congressman who decided to run for Senate in Pennsylvania. He ran against Arnold Specter in 1986, I believe, and he was outspent, I think, so that Specter spent $6 million, and he had $4 million in his campaign. That was the most recent senatorial election, I believe, cost Santorum. Did he spend $20 million? $20 million. So that's more than three.
Thank you. It's kind of fun to be the meat in a sandwich between two great speakers, and I can't wait to hear our keynote speaker of the day. But why not give a round of applause to all of those who have come before you to speak? I'm going to try, and it's hard because I'm a United Methodist preacher. I was pastor of my own church at age 19, and I got elected to Congress at age 31, so I spent 12 years in Congress. And when I left Congress, I didn't lose the race. I came in second. The Olympics are coming up. I got the silver medal. And I worked a couple of years with Senator Paul Simon as his finance director when he ran for president. And then I ran the Committee for National Security, working on arms control, working with Paul Warnke, who negotiated the SALT II agreement. And then I was president of, when you start young, you got to do stuff. And I was president of a graduate school in California for 10 years and learned the kind of the academic speak. And then I was 7.5 years as the General Secretary of the National Council of Churches. You'll remember my first week on the job, I went to Cuba to pick up the two grandmothers of little Elian Gonzalez and brought them to see Janet Reno and to try to get Elian back home. And you'll also remember I took a religious delegation to Baghdad to try to stop the war and do a humanitarian inspection before the war. And then I'm going to take 10 minutes to explain it. So to give my speech in one sentence, I need your help. So I want everybody to stand up, and it's okay for progressive people to hold hands. I want you to hold hands. It's okay, hold hands. Everybody's got to hold hands. And now I want you to repeat after me. You got somebody to touch you. It's okay. We are. We are. We are. We are. The leaders. The leaders. We have been waiting for.
Oh, we have been waiting for. There you go.
I had the privilege in February of 1968 to meet Dr. Martin Luther King 5 weeks before Dr. King was assassinated. I was part of a group of laymen and clergy clergy persons concerned about not just the Vietnam War, but the impact of that war on poverty. I was invited by William Sloane Coffin, who at that time was the chaplain at Yale University, to go to New York Avenue Presbyterian Church in Washington, D.C., and listen to speaker after speaker connect the issue of war and the issue of poverty. And the keynote speaker was this 39-year-old clergy person, Dr. King. Dr. King said this: "When evil men and women plot, good men and women plan. When evil men and women burn and bomb, good men and women must build and bind. When evil men and women shout ugly words of hatred, good men and women commit themselves to the glories of love. Where evil men and women would seek to perpetuate an unjust status quo, good men and women must seek to bring into being a real order of justice." And these words from Dr. King: "We, you and I, will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of bad people, but for the appalling silence of good people." Hear also the words of another African-American leader who I think has spoken to 2008 and to our times. This leader, Howard Thurman, said this: "My concern for the life of the world in these troubled times is this. I confess my own inner confusion as I look out upon the world. There is food for all, many are hungry. There are clothes enough for all, many are in rags. There's room enough for all, many are crowded. There are none who want war, preparations for war abound. I confess my own share in the illness of our times, the illness that you talked about. Move forward for justice, or whether we're going to find ourselves being the very nation that terrorists thought we were. This is our moment to ask, how must we be leaders? In the last 10 years, I've been arrested 4 times. The good news is I have 5 honorary doctorate degrees, so I have one more opportunity for arrest. A couple of those times was getting arrested at the nuclear test site in Nevada. We haven't taken seriously the issue of what nuclear proliferation means. And I was pleased as president of a theological school to take seminarians there to pray and cross the line. I was also inspired and for free speech, for a public voice. I like Peter Yarrow's song that Peter, Paul, and Mary sing, "Have you been to jail for justice?" I'm not advocating that all of you in the room go out and quickly get yourself arrested. But I can tell you that we came very close to having a country that none of us could be very proud of. But I think, and I may be wrong, and our journalist friends can analyze this, and our researchers can research it, I have a suspicion. I have a suspicion that Senator Barack Obama, Senator Hillary Clinton, and Senator John McCain are riding a wave that was not created by them. It's a wave that is out there, created by average, ordinary, common people who are saying no to preemptive war, no to Abu Ghraib, no to torture, no to holding prisoners in a prison camp in Cuba, no to 9 million children who have no health care. And Democrats and independents and Republicans have created this wave. And I spent a little time recently in Hawaii, and someone told me about surfing. I think Senator Obama has caught the energy of that wave and hope for change. And Senator Clinton has caught some of that wave. And even McCain has caught some of the wave because he has found fiscally conservative Republican men who care about the environment, and fiscally conservative Republican women who do care about justice issues and women's understand that that wave is out there. And we need to seize that wave. I became president of Common Cause a year ago because I want to walk in the shoes of John Gardner. I want to go back and read John Gardner's books on leadership and on courage and on morality. And I want to replace Vietnam with the word Iraq and Iran and North Korea. And I want to take words like Watergate out and put Abramoff and delay. And I want to read those words because here was a moderate Republican in the midst of Vietnam, Watergate, energy crisis, who led us to a higher value. And so I close with this. I want you to stand one more time. I won't hurt you. I want you this time to put your hand on somebody's shoulder. Hold on pretty tight. And if you've got an extra hand someplace that's not on a shoulder, think of that hand on the children of our community. It was Hubert Humphrey who said the moral test of government is what we do to those in the dawn of life, our children, those in the twilight of life, the elderly, and all of those in the shadows of life, the poor, the sick, and the disabled. My hope for all of us as we gather for this conference is that we'll be blessed with discomfort and easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships so that we can live deep within our hearts. My hope is that we'll be blessed with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, especially the children, so that we can work for justice, freedom, and peace. And I hope that we're blessed with some tears to shed for those who suffer from pain, rejection, starvation, and war, so that we may reach out our hands to comfort them and turn their pain into joy. And finally, I hope we're all, each of us, individually and collectively, blessed with enough foolishness to believe that we can make a difference in this world and in this nation so that we can do what others claim cannot be done. Have a good day.
I don't think our next speaker needs much of an introduction, but I'm going to give
Read your convention, 6 blocks of coast.
I'm going to send you this stuff. Obama, where's my... I know, Robert
That's great. All right.
All right, tell me when you're ready.
Should I look at the camera or you?
Yeah, look at the camera, Mosley. They're more important than me.
Do magic tricks? Like get my thumb to...
Well, I know it's a magic trick. It's this new breed of cameras. I just love it. This is a high definition.
It's amazing.
So lately, we were able to have a rig under each arm.
That's great.
So essentially, Bob, it's a pleasure. I want to meet you. I understand that you're the new director of Common Cause.
I'm the new president of Common Cause, following in the footsteps of John Gardner, who in August of 1970 created Common Cause as the People's Lobby.
And I've been following the news a little bit about your request to our Attorney General, McCain. Could you tell the American people a little bit about what transpired?
You have to go back even further. A year ago, I called for the impeachment of Alberto Gonzales, who was the Attorney General who had politicized the Justice Department. My belief is that justice should be for all and not just for one political party or one political operation. And I got so angry with Alberto Gonzales, I wanted him out. He voluntarily left, and I thought that was great. But when the new Attorney General came into office, I thought this is a perfect time for him to meet with not only Common Cause, but other people who wanted the Justice Department to be independent from politics. And frankly, he refused opportunities to meet with us. We did finally get a meeting at the Justice Department, but unfortunately it was a young woman, one of the many people from the radical religious right who have infiltrated the Justice Department. She had never heard of Common Cause. It was doing it as a pro forma kind of thing. And so I really want to challenge the Attorney General to speak truth to power and to let some of us who may differ in opinions have a chance to talk to him.
Do you think Mukasey is worse than Gonzalez?
I don't think Mukasey is worse than Gonzalez, but I think he's still doing the administration's bidding, and I'm pained about that. Maybe in the next administration we can convince the next president, once the Attorney General is appointed, that they remember that they're the Attorney General for the nation, for all of Americans, and not just the lawyer for the President of the United States. And I think that's where this administration has really gone wrong in terms of the Justice Department. They're not really analyzing civil rights, human rights, people's rights legislation as they should.
And the Constitution's been all but forgotten, even by the Department of Justice. Would you say that's an accurate statement?
That is absolutely true. I mean, Clinton was brought up on impeachment charges for an offense that's far less than the offense that the current administration has been involved in, related to the abuse of power, the signing statements, the prosecution of the war, and they've taken the Constitution and really watered it down. And I think this is the time for us to reclaim the Constitution and recognize we're really the leaders we've been waiting for. Let's take back the power and give it back to the people.
I think there should be jail time for Bush for what he's done.
Well, I think there at least ought to be an investigation at what got us into a war that was not well planned, a war that was based on false information, a war that was based on lies. I don't think we should ever let a Democratic or Republican administration go as far as this administration has gone to propagandize the public and to lie and to go away from the truth. And I think there needs to be at least some truth-telling over the next several years, and hopefully as soon as the new administration is put in place that we'll see some of that truth-taking. And I think we're getting some of it coming out even from the former press secretary who came out and spoke. And I guess I like what Amy said about, where was the media? Why did the media allow those lies to continue so long? And it was average, ordinary people who continue to speak out and who continue to stand up and speak for justice that I think made the difference.
And what about across-the-board experiences, day in, day out, that Americans are having in the court system? Do you think there's a problem there, or was that one of the...
There's a serious problem with African Americans. We're warehousing our future leaders, particularly in the black community. We're not recognizing that we have a prison system that incarcerates, it doesn't rehabilitate, and I think our justice system needs some openness. We need to find ways to recover. And I like what a number of activists are doing. They're recognizing that 70% or more of children of prisoners go to jail. So let's adopt those children, not in the physical sense of adoption. Let's mentor those children. Let's get black parents and white parents to take those children under their wings and cut in half and lower substantially the number of children who follow the direction. And let's get court systems that work, and let's get judges who aren't running and raising money from the very corporations that they're doing justice for. Here in Minneapolis and in Minnesota, we're reinventing Common Cause, and one of the key issues of reform here is judicial reform, so that judges are not running for office and putting money in their pockets from the very people that they have to have an independent judgment over.
Judges aren't investigated for crimes. There's no investigations. What could be done about that?
Well, I think the best thing that can be done is to have an Attorney General and a Justice Department that represented all Americans, and we held them accountable. And we elect judges that are judges of quality. I don't think that judges should be elected. I think they should be selected by an independent panel to get the brightest and best in those positions, and then maybe recycle them periodically, because the longer they're in their service, the more comfortable they get in their position. And I don't think it would be bad for us to find some new ways to do our judicial system.
Judges judge judges now. Should there be something for civilian oversight of judges where
Well, the Common Cause just successfully worked in Washington to get an independent ethics panel to be independent from the ethics panel in the House. And we had a fun campaign. We said maybe it's time for baseball to investigate Congress. There are more congressmen facing jail terms than there are baseball players, and maybe that's an important thing to look at. But we think that independent ethics panels, independent oversight of the judicial system is not a bad idea. I need to go in a few seconds.
Okay, fine. Last question then. What do you think the judiciary committees at the House and the Senate should be doing? I know you want an independent...
Let me answer a question you didn't ask. The best congressman in the House right now is Henry Waxman.
Yeah.
And Henry is asking for investigations. He's following the money. He's going back and reviewing issues. I want the judiciary committees of both the House and Senate to be as aggressive as Henry Waxman, the congressman from California, has been.
Can you touch on Sensenbrenner's bill?
What's that?
Sensenbrenner's bill, the Judicial Transparency and Ethics Enhancement Act. I forget the year.
I really haven't followed it as closely as I need.
Inspector General of the Judiciary, do you think that's a good idea?
I would support it.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bob.
Excellent job. Thank you.
Hope that's helpful.
I'm Gene Stock.
Okay, very good.
Oh, great.
As your second cousin. He was my father's cousin. So,
Great.
Thanks for yours. Yours are great.